Welcome back and thank you very much for staying with us. This is Journalist Hangout on Sunday and I have been hanging out with Adewale, Adeoye and Dotun Oladipo. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to the next issue. A dialogue is a strategy capable of solving any problem, but adopting it for the security challenges facing Nigeria remains debatable. Former Governor of Zamfara State, Senator Sani Yarima, says if bandits are treated the way former militants in the Niger Delta were handled, banditry could be overcome. But, I mean, some prominent Nigerians have asked that we must be careful about those we dialogue with. Let me start with you.
We need to be very, very careful. We need to understand the dynamics of terrorism, its form and its content. Generally, in principle of conflict resolution, dialogue is a tool.
Yes.
You know, see even what is going on between Ukraine and Russia. At the end of the day, they come to the world fought first, second world wars. At the end of the day, they came to, to round table. However, we must be able to distinguish between criminals, fundamentalists, and also people advocating for political reasons, violent agitation for political gains. I don't see how a country can be talking of negotiating with criminals who are known to be criminals. And I also think that we should not mix up the Niger Delta, with the bandits. They are similar, but they are not the same. The Niger Delta agitators had defined territory. They didn't go to other states to start throwing bombs and all sort of things like these other fellows are doing. And their goal was clearly identified. Environmental pollution, resource control, we want to manage our resources. Talking about environment, so we should not mingle the two. They are different. They may be similar. And they had clearly identified leaders that you can negotiate with. What we have now in some parts of the north is that we have close to 30,000 small groups operating in different territories that are also perpetually opposed to each other. In many instances, fighting each other. So, in terms of having identified, even Boko Haram is split to almost about three groups. So, in terms of when you negotiate with this group, they take your money. The next thing, this other group comes, and then it goes on almost ad infinitum. So we must be able to sieve, we must be able to look for a sieve to sieve, this negotiation very well, so that if we are going to negotiate with anyone, it has to be on the basis of the fact that negotiation will be meaningful. The negotiations we have been having in the past shows that they didn't work because most of those negotiations were not done with the best intention. And even we are negotiating with wrong hands, wrong people. But we must have a general long-term policy of saying that terrorism must be destroyed. And that means an economic roadmap, a security roadmap, a socio-political roadmap, a psychological roadmap. It's not just one program. For instance, look at what is going on in Sudan, in Khartoum. It seems we are quiet, but it's going to split over to, we have almost about thousands of refugees now in Chad from Sudan. We are not talking now. Very soon, many of them will start moving to Nigeria to join some of these bandits. So we need an effective policing system, especially our borders. So we need a broad plan to be able to deal with this problem, not just negotiation. There is no guarantee that negotiation will automatically, resolve the problems at hand. But I don't think we should rule out negotiation where those negotiations are meaningful and will be fruitful.
All right. So, Mr. Dotun, the president has said his administration will deploy all strategies available in tackling insecurity. And I think you also mentioned dialogue. So, Senator Yarima might be on track.
Dialogue is fine. But like Mr. Adeoye said, we must be able to sieve things properly in identifying those that we need to dialogue with and those that we need to deal with.
I like that.
Like it happened in the Niger Delta, where the amnesty program came up. Perhaps we can say that will be applicable, at least to a very large extent, in the Northwest. Because those who are agitating there are agitating for justice. We are the ones who are here. You have left us, and we have not had good political leaders to ensure that our lives have meaning. They are Nigerians, except at some point where members of Boko Haram running from the northeast started moving in, and they've been cut off now. So when you go into a place like Zamfara, Sokoto, and all the rest, you can begin to talk of negotiation. Those are our own people. What do you want? What injustice? We've seen a lot of governors who have performed woefully. Ex-governors who have performed woefully. But when it is Christmas, when it is Salah period, they keep doling out millions to a few people. Sometimes I wonder, where did they get that money, if not stolen funds? But that's not what you are supposed to do with it. It's not for your own political goodwill. It's supposed to be for the people. Why did they fail to build institutions that can take care of the people, provide employment, provide a level playing ground for people to have their businesses running well? There are some governors and ex-governors who can run a whole state with their funds that they have. But you can't say the same thing of those terrorists in the Northeast. They're a different ballgame. Most of them are foreigners. Like you said, people are preparing now to move in from Sudan. If those people come in from Sudan, what are we going to be telling them? That they are our own people, or that, don't worry, we will settle you so that you can return to where you are going? What are we going to be telling them? Those ones, we need to smoke them out. We need to ensure that they are gone and gone for good. That's why the issue of the service chiefs happen to be critical. So that those guys are cut off from our country completely. Well, what are we going to be negotiating? Nothing. Because they are not even Nigerians. That's what has been discovered. Most of those who form Boko Haram and the ISIS and all the rest, they are not Nigerians. So they don't have a part in our resources. But those in the Northwest, fine, we can sit down. What are the issues? And then maybe we've had things like the amnesty program set up in the North. And they begin to talk to them. And then use, like we say, the carrot and stick approach. Because that obviously is still what is in the Niger Delta now. Anybody who breaks the pipeline is gone. Though it's a shame that we now have private companies doing what our military should be doing. And doing it better, more effectively. You know? But it's still the same issue of carrot and stick. You can't say you are a militant now, and then you go and break a pipeline and think they will now call you, yeah, let's negotiate. You are going to go down for it. So we should know that it's not just a one-way thing of dialogue. Dialogue is fine. There is no way you are going to be able to peacefully resolve any issue without dialogue.
All right. So, I mean, we've talked about dialogue, and he has talked about effective policing. And just like you mentioned, over 60,000 Nigerians have lost their lives in the past 8 years. And some Nigerians are asking or calling for a multi-stakeholder approach to dealing with insecurity. That's
fine. There is nothing wrong with that. We can all sit down. The government can sit down with people and say, okay, what can we fashion out? But the first thing is that we must have gotten our own selves. That is on the part of the government now. We must get things right. Because when you look at a place like Sudan, that is boiling now, how many meetings have they held? How many meetings? Look at the Liberia that I mentioned. The moment Charles Taylor was taken out, there was some peace in that country. The moment they also got some of the heads of these things and took them out, there was peace. So we must realize that it's not just about sitting down, but identifying where the challenges are. If there's somebody you need to take out, take the person out. It's not by death. It's not by killing. Move him away from where he is. After all, Charles Taylor was here in Lagos for about some years. So meaning that he's far away from whatever is happening there. It's just a matter of denying that person access to communicate. Take them out. And then you can begin to talk. But it's not talking alone without action will not resolve our problem.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dotto. Now, Mr. Adoye, let me come to you. And this is still about the call for a multi-stakeholder approach to tackling this issue. I mean, you know, sometimes there have been talks about state governors being overwhelmed. Yeah. But these governors say that they maintain that the security arrangements in the country, as enshrined in the Constitution, makes them handicapped.
That is absolutely true. My colleague said something about a private company, you know, in Niger Delta, resolving these problems more than our own security. That is true. Why? That is the principle of community policing. They are from that community. They live there. So they know all the roots, all the Greeks. And they have been brought in as stakeholders in the protection of lives and property. But in a situation where you bring the police commissioner from Lagos and the beginning of Lagos State, you take him to Sokoto, then the DPO is from Sanfara. What sense of belonging are you giving to the terrain? Yes. But if indigenous people are part and parcel, security is not a property you just dash us. It's our property. We need to be part of it. We need to be involved. Do you know that governors want to get drone? They need to apply through National Security Advisor.
In Abuja.
In Abuja. What kind of thing is that? How many times have you had Inspector General of Police in UK, Inspector General of Police in US? And we copy the same system, then we now bastardize it. We need to have an effective system that recognizes the role of indigenous communities in policing, in protecting their own property, in protecting their own lives. So that is where we should be looking at. That should be our next step. Communities must be involved. Community policing, policemen should have, you know, policing is not just about carrying guns. It's about psychology, knowledge of history, knowledge of culture, knowledge of environment. If you don't have all that, you just carry your gun and go somewhere. If America, when America wanted to fight in Iraq, for about 15 years, that projected there will be a war. And they have been sending their advanced team, going there, working as NGOs, working as priests, going from one place to the other, going to the mosques and all that, getting information about the spirituality of the people, about the culture, about the heritage, before it became easier for them to take out Saddam. So we need to know that security is not the property of people in Abuja, it's our property. And I hope that we should be thinking of stakeholders approach. Community people need to be involved. The economic aspect is very important. The environment, is very important. Media people are also very important. All sort of, lies and also the social media organizations. I'm happy somebody leading one of the best online media is here, who are trying to fight for professionalism. But there are all sorts of other groups that just write all sorts of things, all sorts of lies that mislead the people about security and also write stories that can threaten national stability. So everybody needs to be involved, including online publishers. And I think if we can recognize the import of multi-stakeholders approach, we will realize that security is not just for soldiers and policemen alone, it's for all of us. And I think we are going to have better results if we adopt that
all right, so Mr. Dotson, if the governors are saying the security arrangements as enshrined in the Constitution makes them handicapped, I mean, they've considered this a step backward in this fight against insecurity. This is a fresh administration. What would you advise in this regard? Well,
we've been talking about state police for so long. You mentioned it in passing. When you go to where we copied our democracy, which is the US, what you have there, which they spoke about some time ago, was a National Guard. You have New York Police Department, Los Angeles Police Department, all states have their own police department. What they do when criminals are fleeing across state borders is to collaborate so that it's more effective. When the idea of having constabulary policemen came up, it sounded nice to me until I heard that these guys are not being paid. You should go and train them in how to gather intelligence, you give them the uniform, and then you expect them to do it for you for free. Are they not going to feed their families? And you want to engage them in security issues. So some of the things that we do, they are neither here nor there. We have our fears about state police. Some of the governors in the southwest, in the northeast, they came together and said, okay, let's have geopolitical security arrangements. We're having more peace now in the southwest, especially when you look at the Ekiti, Ondo axis, especially in Ondo, which leads out into the north. We're having peace now because those Amotekun guys understand the terrain far better than the policemen and soldiers. When you go to Borno State, those who are combating the terrorists, they don't go out now without members of the Civilian Joint Task Force. Because those guys understand the terrain. They know where to go. They know who among them is an informant. They know this, they know that. So it's easier. While the soldiers do the firing and all the rest, they with their small guns that we call shakabula, just to protect themselves, are giving them intelligence. This is where to go. This is where to follow. So it means, just like politics, security is also local. You can't wish it away. These are the kind of people, this is this kind of step we should take, where those who are policing the community, they know everybody around. They can say if a stranger drives in, not the man, like he said, who has come from Lagos to go and police Nasarawa State. He's just going to go there, sit in his office, and in about 2 years, he's going to be moved again, go and take up another challenge. In 1 year, where he is, he's moved again. So we should have a better arrangement. If we have copied our democracy from the US, then we should copy it well. Because a lot of the things that we copied, we are misusing it. We are turning it upside down. And that is why it is affecting us. We must go back. There are a lot of, if not for the bastardization, some groups are doing well in terms of combating insecurity. Outside of the Southwest, where we have the OPC, other regions are trying to do a few things, but they are bastardizing them. Some started in Kano, is this Yankari, or, they bastardize them. But go anywhere today in Lagos, where you have OPC providing night guard service, and tell me if they have robbed in that area. Because they are the local guys who understand what it means, what it takes. Yeah, if somebody who is a stranger wants to come and rob in my community, can't know more growth than I do. I've lived in a certain part of Lagos where armed robbers will jump the fence into that community. Before they land, they are dead because the guys are watching. They know where to wait for them. Once they are in the night, they know where to wait. Maybe you are calling me with sophisticated guns, but we are already waiting for you behind the fence.
Right. I mean, so he briefly talked about the welfare of these officers, and I know many Nigerians are saying a lot of times it's not about huge budgetary expenditure or heavy weapons that fight wars, but soldiers with the right frame of mind.
Exactly. Training is not just about handling of guns. Psychological training, like those policemen who are talking about that ran over, a human being. You will know that they need some kind of a psychological training. And even, you know, when people go to war in the Northeast and all that, there is the post-war trauma therapy. You know, many of them have watched blood, they have seen blood, they have seen people killed in the most savage manner. They are tortured. You know, that's why you see in developed countries, they also pass through a lot of spiritual, you know, healing. That's why in the army you have chaplain department. What they do is that they give spiritual hope to people who have seen war because they are traumatized. Some of them cannot even sleep. And sometimes they begin to develop hatred for their environment. And it could spur violence. You know, they could begin to attack people and, you know, even commit all sorts of things that is not out of their own free will. So the training needs to be comprehensive. And when we're also talking about welfare, sometimes I see policemen when I'm passing through. I will see them around 6 a.m. When I'm passing through in the evening, they are still there. And I wonder who takes care of their food. Well, I mean, working for that kind of long stretch of hours, you know. So we need to also know that policemen are human beings, soldiers are human beings. Their welfare, their family, their children is all of importance to us. Look at our barracks everywhere. When you are talking about barracks, what comes to your mind is, you know, shanties.
Shanties.
They don't deserve to live in those areas. Insurance for them, good health care for them, those things are very important. If you don't put them in that kind of psychological state, economic state, they will not be able to fight, you know, genuinely to protect the country. And I also think to add this, when I'm talking about negotiation, we need to broaden the scope. It's not only North, the East, where we have IPOP and all that. Negotiation is not just for bandits in the North. People also agitating for self-determination. We need to work out a framework that will bring everybody together to the negotiating table.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Now let's move to the final lap of the program. It appears the federal government